Well, hello my beautiful book besties, welcome back to my channel. My name is Liv if you're new here, and if you decided to click on this video, I am so excited because we are going to be talking about some of my all-time favorite books. Are having a wonderful start to your cozy fall season. It finally feels like fall because I'm here about to share with you some of my favorite fall fantasy specific books. This is probably the only recommendation video I'm going to be putting out this year because I have a lot of other fall and atmospheric and cozy recommendation videos I've put out in previous years, and honestly I was going through those videos and I stand by every single one of those recommendations still to this day. So if you don't know, I actually have an autumn playlist here on YouTube that you can go and browse that. But what I did realize is that I haven't necessarily put out a fantasy specific recommendation, which I feel like is literally a crime. I am one of the biggest fantasy readers. It's the genre that really got me into reading and still captivates me to this day. So if fantasy is not your thing, I totally understand, but if it's not, I'm also here to convince you to pick up some of my absolute favorites, and these just so happen to be atmospheric or gothic or cozy, so we have several different vibes here, and I'm just here to convince you to pick up at least one of these books or series this fall because they are literally all top tier and I could reread them all this fall and be just as satisfied as if I only read new releases this year, because I love these books so much. Maybe you haven't even considered some of these books to be fall or seasonal before, but maybe I can change your mind. So before we get started, I hope you get yourself a cozy hot cup of tea, a pumpkin spice latte, snuggle up on the couch, and just really set the mood, because these books are definitely gonna make you want to read them this fall. To start us off, I had to start with Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows. It does not get better than Rebecca Ross, you guys. She has quickly become one of my all-time favorite authors, but let me just set the scene of this book for you. Cold fog had settled over the depot like a burial shroud, and Iris Winnow thought the weather couldn't have been better. She could hardly see the train through the gloom, but she could taste it in the evening air. Metal and smoke and burning coal. The wooden platform was slick beneath her shoes, gleaming with rain puddles and piles of decaying leaves. That's how this book starts off. It is perfectly set up with a fall atmosphere. This is the duology that I always recommend to people that are not fantasy readers or are trying to get into the genre, because you don't have to understand a lot of what's happening in this world. It's technically kind of like magical realism, where we have these gods above that are currently going through some type of war, and then you also have Iris and Roman that are kind of like enemies because I think they're kind of fighting for the same position at this newspaper. They're both writers. Iris's brother is actually missing on the front line of this war, so she writes him letters and puts them under the wardrobe in her bedroom. Well, all of a sudden they start vanishing. I've always said this book kind of feels like Chronicles of Narnia. It just kind of has that nostalgic feel, but also it's heavier on the relationship between these two and the tension, and I just love both these characters so much. This book is definitely rich in romance, not as much heavy on the magic, but with the second book you definitely get a lot more of those questions answered about who are these gods, and even with the prequel, Wild Reverence, you are going to get more information. The feelings I get when looking at these books is just unmatched. It's just so wholesome and deep. It's not your typical like rom-com. There are sad moments. I've cried. Like, these books are filled with so much emotion. I truly cannot put into words how I feel about this series other than I love it. I'm obsessed. So out of any of these books that I mention, I really hope that you pick up this series. In my eyes, there can never be a more perfect couple than Iris and Roman. Not to mention, we are getting an adaptation, so if you need an extra push to finally read these, now's your time before the movie or the series comes out, because it is going to be absolutely phenomenal. The next series that I personally still need to finish with Wisteria, because we have Holly coming over the holiday season, is the Belladonna series. This series has so much wrapped into one. I know there's an aspect to this with Death himself that a lot of people are kind of like put off by, but honestly, this is one of the most unique stories I've ever read. The atmosphere is perfectly gothic. We're following our main character Signa, who is unfortunately orphaned. She ends up moving to this estate with her other extended family members at Thorngrove. One of them is struggling with a mysterious illness, and while she's there, Signa's mother's spirit actually comes and tells her, "My death was not an accident. Someone actually poisoned me." So she's not only trying to figure out what mysterious illness her cousin is going through, but also what happened to her mother. And then let's just say she may potentially make an alliance with Death himself. I love the vibes. We have romance, we have a mystery, which I think is so fun, which is honestly one of my favorite things. I love fantasy books, I love politics, but when you get a mystery involved, I'm completely sold. Personally, I think the audiobooks are also a great way to go because the way she narrates Death's voice is just absolutely phenomenal and creepy, and oof, it's giving me the chills. I absolutely need to finish this series as soon as possible. Another book and author in general I think is severely underrated. I don't know why people don't talk about this author. This is The Bone Houses by Emily Lloyd Jones. This is about a girl named Rin whose parents recently passed away. She's trying to take care of her siblings and earn money by being a gravedigger, or trying to put to rest, or shall I say keep to rest, these people who are called the Bone Houses. They honestly kind of feel a little bit like zombies, but I don't want to put this book in a zombie category because it feels very, very different the way she handles it in this world. Then comes along Ellis, who is a map maker. He's a traveling map maker, and they obviously cross paths. They decide to help each other out with their journey. This is one of the most atmospheric, subtly creepy kind of books I've ever read. I don't read a lot of spooky, like really horrific things, but this book, absolutely incredible. I also cried at the end of this book, which was something that was completely unexpected. It caught me off guard, and I really want more people to read this book because it was just so much fun. Speaking of spooky, Erin A. Craig is one of the spookiest authors I've ever read from. Her stories are incredible. Her atmosphere is probably the most atmospheric out of all of these books I'm going to talk about. This book came out last year and it ended up on my top 5 favorites of the year, and I cannot wait to get to her new book. But this book is about a girl named Hazel who is this 13th child, meaning she belongs to the gods. So at the beginning of this book, we are waiting for her to essentially be taken by the gods. Little does she know, it's Death himself, named Maverick, who comes to claim her, and he actually says to her that she's going to be a healer, and he puts her under all this intense training. She studies the body and surgeries and just all of these different things that kind of add like a goriness or creepiness to the story. I really don't want to tell you any more of the story because I feel like I went into this kind of blind. That was the best way to do it because there were so many twists and turns and so many things that popped up in this book I was not expecting at all, and that's what I love about Erin A. Craig. She knows how to pull a good twist. The overall theme and storyline of this book is one of the most unique books I have ever read in my entire life, and I just love how creative that Erin A. Craig is. If you do have the chance to get a hold of this fall, it is a little bit bigger, but I could not put this book down. This next series is one for the Twilight or Hunger Games fans out there, and you can probably guess what this is. It's the Serpent and the Wings of Night series by Carissa Broadbent. I've only read this first book, so I cannot speak for the rest of the series. I did read this back when it was kind of first becoming popular. There wasn't any of the other books out, and I just remember being so blown away by the world she created, how cutthroat this was. The adopted human daughter of the Nightborn Vampire King, Aurea carved her place in a world designed to kill her. Her only chance to become something more than prey is entering the Kajari, a legendary tournament held by the goddess of death herself. But winning won't be easy against the most vicious warriors from all 3 vampire houses. To survive, Aurea is forced to make an alliance with a mysterious rival. So not only do we have our main character that is on edge because she's living in a vampire world as a human, which is terrifying, but also she is going through these very cutthroat types of competitions, and if I remember correctly, a lot of them take place during the nighttime because, you know, they're vampires. There was just so many scenes that really gave me the creeps, and I was on the edge of my seat. It was extremely fast-paced, and I cannot wait to continue on with this series, not to mention the end. One of the biggest cliffhangers that I was mad, I didn't know how to feel, and I've never been so emotionally distraught over the end of a book. So if you're wanting something that's just super fast-paced, that's gonna suck you right in, but also it's a little bit dark, so definitely be careful or check the content warnings if you want. But I was completely obsessed with this, and talking about it now makes me want to drop my entire fall TBR and just continue on with this series. Next, I want to recommend an author just in general because a lot of her books are very gothic fantasy. That is Rachel Gillick, The Night and the Moth specifically, because this is the only book I've read from her. This book is about our main character Sybil, who lives in a cathedral with a bunch of other girls, and her job is to dream, essentially, and she is supposed to be able to predict other people's futures, kind of. But then one day there's this knight that shows up and her other sisters start going missing. So she goes on this journey with this knight to find her other sisters, and in doing so she interacts with all of these different gods, or omens I think they're called. But this book, I'm not gonna lie to you, I started out the first 50-100 pages and I was like, this is really weird. This cover, first of all, is kind of giving like Sia vibes, the musical artist, but I just couldn't picture what this world was supposed to be. It's very unique. Even though we have a lot of dark, despairing moments, we also have a lot of hope and humor. We have a gargoyle named Bartholomew that is kind of like Sybil's familiar in a way. He follows her around, kind of takes care of her, but he is so funny. He is now one of my all-time favorite book characters, and I really would love for you guys to experience who Bartholomew is and the journey Sybil goes on. I love the twist at the end. I literally cannot wait for the second book. This is one of the most unique reading experiences that I've had in a really long time. Switching gears here a little bit with a dark academia series, which truly got me into this whole genre. I hadn't really read anything that I was intrigued by or interested by in the past until I finally picked up A Study in Drowning, and then Ethereal Dreaming just came out. This story follows our main character named Effie, who is currently in college. She's struggling through school, and she's always found comfort and solace in one of her favorite authors. One of her architectural classes has her doing a project that brings her to the estate of her favorite author. And then she also encounters Preston, who she's going to be working very closely with. I've been sitting here yapping about this book, but then I realized I need to just stop, because I need you to experience what I experienced when I read this book. Let's just say there's potentially a faking also involved. Eva Reed's prose and writing is so thought-provoking. You're not gonna read these books and have your light, fluffy, fae or like romantasy type of time. You're going to be thinking about your own life and thinking about politics and thinking about so many other things. I just really, really do appreciate and love the mental health representation in both of these books. I love this series. It's like nothing that I've ever read before. Okay, we've talked about a lot of like darker, gothic, atmospheric type of books, but we're gonna definitely switch things up a little bit with some of my favorite cozy fantasy reads, starting us off with Legends and Lattes. This is the book and the author that got me into this whole genre to begin with. I remember seeing the cover of this and being like, that does not look like anything I would ever pick up, until I read the synopsis and how adorable it sounded. It is low stakes, and I definitely recommend it to a lot of people that are trying to get into the fantasy genre or just want something that's very easy to get through. This is about Viv, who used to be an orc. She used to fight, but she's kind of done with that lifestyle, and she moves to a seaside coastal town. She opens up a coffee shop slash bakery. A lot of these people in the town don't know what coffee is at all. I think they call it like bean juice or something like that. And then she also befriends a mouse who bakes all of the bakery items. It's cozy. You don't have to be a coffee drinker at all to love this story. I also really loved Bookshops and Bone Dust, and then we're also getting Brigance and Bread Knives. I highly recommend this series if you're just wanting to feel the coziness of fall and coffee shop vibes, found family. I mean, what's not to love? And then one of my all-time favorite witchy feel-good fall rom-coms that has a little bit of magic sprinkled throughout it is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. I have not read her new book yet, but I'm definitely hoping to. It's a heartwarming story about our main character named Mika Moon, who is actually a real witch, but to cover up her real witchiness, she actually makes videos and puts them online. That's just kind of to divert people's attention away from her, that she's not an actual real witch. Well, someone finds out, or thinks that she is, and welcomes her into this home to train these other young girls to be witches. There's a couple other professors that she makes as friends. There are the cutest, sweetest little girls. There's so many great wholesome moments, and basically we're just following her training these little girls. It's also very British, which I love. The narration is amazing. The wit, the humor, the magic. I mean, there's just something in this book for everyone to love. It's very easy to fly through. If you want a book that feels like a warm, cozy hug in the chill of fall, this is definitely going to be the choice for you. It is so heartwarming, so cute. I feel like I've said those adjectives many times already, but if those are more your vibes versus like the dark fall atmospheric kind of fantasy, I would definitely check this one out. These last two books, or series I should say, are definitely not under the fantasy genre, but for specific reasons they feel like fantasy to me. And I'm not gonna like give anything away, but I definitely keep these books on my fantasy shelves because they just categorize as that in my mind. They're more historical fiction, but I love the duology of anatomy and immortality. These books are gruesome, gory, suspenseful, romantic. Everything you could ever want in like a fall book is right here in this series. I am obsessed. Basically, you have Hazel, who's destined to just get married, marry a good guy, live her life, become a housewife, but no, she doesn't want to do that. She wants to become a surgeon. During this time in history, women weren't meant to be doctors or surgeons, so she dresses up as a boy and she gets into the school of a famous professor who she wants to study under. But then we have Jack Kerr. He's called a resurrection man, and suddenly some of his friends are disappearing on the streets, and there's just some interesting connections happening with the mystery of this book. Oh my word, the worst cliffhanger ever, aka the best hangover ever, because I went in the day this came out and I immediately started it and read it, and it was just wow, it was incredible. So if you're looking for a series that's extremely fast-paced, you're never gonna be bored, and it's just suspenseful and spooky, please check these out. I even know the author has been doing a podcast for I think a few years before she even wrote these books, so she has definitely done her research on a lot of historical things that were happening during the time of this series, and it's just really intriguing. Very different, but very entertaining. And if you've already read Anatomy and you absolutely love that one, or you finished that one and you're like, I need something that feels similar, let me suggest to you Stalking Jack the Ripper and also Hunting Prince Dracula. These books are also kind of like historical fiction. Jack the Ripper was actually a real serial killer, and so it's a little bit spooky in that regard. He murdered women in cold blood. He terrorized an entire city. He taunted those of us who hunted him down. But despite all those horrors, in the end, I could not deny it. I was the girl who loved the Ripper. I have wanted to read this for forever. Read it for the first time last year. Completely blown away. I read this one, loved it almost just as much as the first one. Our main character in this book, I think, is also studying under her uncle as kind of like a surgeon, or I don't know, something of the sort. She wants to be a doctor, kind of like Hazel wanted to be in anatomy. And so you're definitely going to get the mystery of these disappearances of the women, and she decides to take it upon herself to solve some of these cases. And in this book, you're following, as you can imagine, a killer who has very similar vibes to Dracula himself. This takes place, I think, in like the Scottish Highlands. It's kind of dark academia also, which is really fun. We get introduced to a lot more side characters. These two books right here are definitely more backlisted, but I wish I had read them sooner. So if you've had dust collecting on your shelves from these books, I definitely think this year is the year you should pick them up. Well, thank you all for watching this video and listening to me rant and rave about a ton of my favorite fantasy books. These books I could literally reread right now, like I said, and enjoy them just as much as the first time. If you've also read some of these books before and you love them, or they're all-time favorites, definitely let me know. Or if you're planning to pick one of these up now because of my video, you should definitely let me know how you like it. But thank you so much for watching this video and supporting my channel. I hope you're having an amazing day wherever you are. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in my next video.